they develop into full-blown cancer. The primary cause of cervical cancer is the HPV virus. It's important to note that HPV is common, with the vast majority of people who have sex becoming infected with the virus at some point in their lives. But not all HPV infections lead to cancer. In fact, most infections are cleared by the body's immune system within a few years. However, certain high-risk strains of HPV, particularly type 16 and 18, are linked to the development of cervical cancer. These high-risk strains are responsible for about 70% of all cervical cancer cases. While there is no cure for HPV itself, there is a powerful tool that can prevent infection with the most dangerous strains, the HPV vaccine. The HPV vaccine is an important step in the fight against cervical cancer. It's most effective when administered before individuals become sexually active, typically between the ages of 11 and 12. But it can also provide protection for people up to the age of 26, reducing the risk of HPV infection and, consequently, cervical cancer. Vaccination programs are already making a difference in many countries. In regions with high vaccination rates, the number of cervical cancer cases has begun to decline. Yet, there are still many parts of the world where access to the vaccine and screenings is limited, and cervical cancer remains a major health challenge. Globally, cervical cancer is one of the leading causes of cancer-related deaths among women, particularly in low- and middle-income countries. Here, limited access to screening and vaccination programs means that many women are diagnosed too late, when treatment options are fewer. In some regions, the lack of awareness and healthcare infrastructure further exacerbates the problem. However, there are efforts underway to change this. Mobile clinics and educational campaigns are bringing much-needed screenings and vaccinations to rural and underserved areas. Through outreach and awareness, communities are being empowered to take charge of their health. Education is one of the most powerful weapons we have in the fight against cervical cancer. In many places, awareness campaigns are helping women understand the risks of HPV, the importance of regular screenings, and the life-saving potential of the HPV vaccine. By educating women about their health, we can increase early detection and prevention rates. Empowering women to make informed choices about their health not only saves lives, but it also creates healthier communities for future generations. Every year, thousands of women survive cervical cancer. Women like Maria, who, after receiving a routine screening, learned she had abnormal cells. She underwent treatment and is now healthy, cancer-free, and living life to the fullest. Her story, like so many others, is a testament to the power of early detection, treatment, and prevention. When cervical cancer is caught early, the outcome is often positive. But not every woman is so fortunate. Globally, cervical cancer still claims far too many lives. That's why our fight must continue, and why we must ensure every woman has access to screenings, the HPV vaccine, and the knowledge she needs to protect herself. The fight against cervical cancer is not just a local challenge, it's a global one. But it's a challenge we can win. With education, access to vaccines, and early screenings, we have the tools to drastically reduce cervical cancer deaths. The World Health Organization has set an ambitious goal to eliminate cervical cancer as a public health problem by 2030. This goal is within reach, but only if we act together. Cervical cancer doesn't have to be a silent killer. Through prevention, education, and early detection, we can protect the women of today and tomorrow. Together, we can end the suffering and ensure a future where cervical cancer is no longer a threat. Thank you for joining us on this important journey. Stay informed, take action, and be a part of the movement to end cervical cancer for good.
Thank you. Many thanks for still staying with us. And our guest is still in the studio, Dr. Tochukwu Joseph Enebe, a consultant obstetrician and gynecologist. Dr. Enebe, from our report, it's safe to say that cervical cancer is a disease of the females. And if it is, can you tell us in simple terms what exactly is cervical cancer?
Well, in the most simple terms, we could say that cervical cancer is the growth of cancer cells on the cervix.
Okay.
The cervix is the mouth of the womb. That is the entrance to the womb in a very simple way. So when you have abnormal cells start growing there and growing uncontrollably, that is what we call cancer. And that's cervical cancer, yeah.
Okay, so you said the abnormal cells what predisposes a woman, and we're going to get to whether it can actually affect the males, because from the special report we heard about people being sexually active, but we're going to get to that in a bit. Now, what are some of the predisposing factors that could make one female develop cervical cancer, maybe another one may never develop it in a lifetime?
Okay, well, just from what we've heard so far, cervical cancer, one of the major it has been known that the major cause of cervical cancer is human papillomavirus infection, and is sexually transmitted. So we say that cervical cancer is a sexually transmitted disease. So now, how are you predisposed to it? It means that first of all, you have to have what? Sexual contact. So, and also the report also told us that if you have a sexual contact at the time when the cervix is immature, it's not strong enough to resist the infection.
Can you give us an age range?
We talked about below 18 years. If you have
Below
the first
18 years.
sexual contact within this period. But he also mentioned that the likelihood is commoner. It's commoner among the younger age. So if you start coming back from 11, 10, 9, which commonly in our society now, you find out that the women now have their first sexual contact at those ages, So, and what happens at that age? When the human papillomavirus infection is so many, they have so many strains. And amongst those so many strains, there's only a number of them that causes cervical cancer. We mentioned the strain called 16 and 18, and likewise 35, 45, and others. These are the ones. So you may be infected with human papillomavirus infection without being affected with those oncogenic strains, those ones that cause cancer.
You have to speak English. You're speaking OBGYN.
So I mean oncogenic, the cancer-causing strains. So if you are infected with those ones, now the body also has its natural defense system of fighting those viruses. So now, if the age is immature, you find out that over time, those viruses are not excreted. But in the adult, somebody that has a very good immune system, you find out that over time, about majority of the viruses, they're excreted. So you find out that those ones, they don't grow into abnormal cells and then subsequent cancer. So it means that one, if you have sexual exposure in an early age, it could develop cervical cancer in future. Now, it's not only that. We don't find out that, okay, now assuming I don't even engage in sex at all, it means that probably I am not going to have cervical cancer. So now, it means that abstinence could be a preventive way of people not getting cervical cancer. Now, assuming that I have only one sexual partner, it means that probably if we have a virus, we may share only one virus, or we may not even have at all. However, when you now find a woman having multiple sexual partners, you now find out that problem comes in. Then in our own traditional system, we find out that our people, sometimes you see early marriages, and those early marriages, probably, there could be polygamous family in some of them. So if I find out polygamy, why you have so many women, this one has
it all boils down to multiple sex partners.
So it boils down to almost the same thing. So we're saying that, fine, the major factor is what? Early sexual exposure, multiple sexual partners, and then things that can bring down your immunity system. Assuming that even at adult age, maybe beyond 18, somebody gets exposed to human papillomavirus infection, and then there is no good immunity. So, for example, people that have human immunodeficiency virus, HIV infection. So it brings down the immunity to the extent that the body can't fight those HPV viruses, and then there's no persistence. So actually the major cause of the precancerous cells, or those cancer-causing cells, is just that the virus stays there for a very long time. So if it stays there for a very long time, you cannot have time to now develop into cancer. Now, and if you look at this cancer, you can also say that this cancer is a very merciful cancer, because it gives you time for you to do something.
But in giving you time to do something, you're not even aware that
is the problem. So is
it really messy?
Yes, it's merciful, because it's saying, okay, now you have opportunities of not getting infected. That's number one. Now, secondly, even when you are infected, if you have a very strong immunity, it means that you can You can ward off the virus. Now, even when you get infected and you couldn't remove the virus, it also tells you, please, I am there. But the problem, can I know that the virus is there? So when that neglect is given to that disease condition, then I find out that over time, between 10 to 20 years, somebody develops cervical cancer. So which means that within 10 years, 20 years, it could have been dealt with. And I think that's the reason why we're here.
Are there other lifestyle factors that can predispose a woman to contracting cervical cancer? For example, sharing of underwears, hygiene, certain kinds of food. Are there other lifestyle factors that can predispose someone
Just
to
like
cervical
what I have
cancer?
said, every other thing that is surrounding this is just like stories, you know. The only major known cause of cervical cancer is sexual exposure, not because we're wearing similar clothes and all that. So if that's a mechanism of transmission is not known to science as of the moment.
Okay.
And then, like I said, you know, having sexual exposure at an early time, maybe due to marriage or due to probably the decadence in the
society.
society.
Was that why, although I'm jumping a little bit, but it's really important, was that why during the time of the cervical cancer vaccination, a certain age range was targeted? Rather than those in the older age bracket, they targeted the younger ones, I think between 11 and 13 or 11 and 14. Was that the reason why?
Okay. Yes, of course. You know, because it's science, you know. That most of the time we have seen that most of the time the sexual exposure comes in almost about just shortly after this time. Even though we may argue that we have to even bring the age backwards because sexual exposure can even occur at 10 years, depending on the family brought up of the girl child. Yeah.
All right. You mentioned that sexual orientation, sexual escapade, that is the major predisposing factor. Now, and from the special report, and you have also alluded to the fact that it's a sickness of the female folk.
Yes.
But it is gotten through sexual intercourse.
Yes.
And sexual intercourse is between a man and a woman.
Yes.
So how does the man transmit HPV, which is the etiological agent, without himself getting sick? And then the woman carries the virus and probably it progresses to becoming, you know, a cancer.
So if you look at the HPV virus, it affects surfaces. If you come to a woman, the epithelium, you know.
What is the epithelium?
The epithelium is the cover of those reproductive tracts. Like you have the vagina, you have the anus, you have the cervix. You find out that the HPV can actually affect all those surfaces. But the one we are discussing today is just the cervix, the cervical cancer. So men on their own part also has the covering of their penis. They can also have cancer caused by the same HPV.
Wow.
Then if also
but it's not called cervical now because it's
there's no cervix.
No cervix.
Yes. So it's called penile cancer. So you can also have penile cancer there, but that's just the man's own version of cervical cancer.
Wow.
They can also have vaginal cancer. All of them are also caused by the same type of viruses.
Tell us about oral sex. Can it transmit HPV?
Yes, definitely can transmit HPV.
How does that work really?
Now, you are touching the body parts where those viruses are. So you swallow the viruses at the end of the day. So you can also cause problems in the throat. So
because there's also lining.
Yes, can also cause throat cancer. So that's why it's not really advocated. I hope a woman will understand that.
No, we're here to educate. Please go ahead. So you're saying this same HPV that can cause cervical cancer, can cause penile cancer, and cause throat cancer.
And then if people that also have anal sex also causes anal cancer.
My goodness. What are the signs, the earliest signs of cervical cancer?
Now the truth is that at the early part of cervical, maybe let me say there are stages in this progression of the cancer. One is that the cancer can progress from infection to the precancerous stage. From the precancerous stage, then the cancer itself.
Okay.
So we now find out that the cancer during the precancerous stage, no symptoms.
Asymptomatic.
So it's highly asymptomatic. So the woman who has such a condition won't know that it has any infection. Then also the early part of the cancer itself may not present with any symptom. However, when the woman starts presenting with symptoms, most of the time we find out that the cancer has advanced.
Yeah.
So now what are the symptoms a woman can see? And they say that it has cervical cancer. First of all, you may have a discharge. That discharge could be described as watery and has offensive odor.
Very different from the ovulation
Yeah,
discharge.
no, it's not cyclical, it's always there, and it's watery and it's foul smelling. So if a woman has that, it means that she has to go and see the health professional, especially the one of the OBGYN. Okay? Now, apart from that, if a woman has sexual contact, especially maybe with the partner or the husband, and there is blood, so bleeding after sex, you must see the doctor for more examination. And
what kind of bleeding? Can you describe the bleeding?
Post-coital bleeding, maybe after sex, or during the sex, you see spots of blood. Of course, you must have to find out where is that bleeding coming from. Is it coming from tears, or is it just coming from those epithelium? If it happens, then we'll have to screen the woman further to know whether she has cervical cancer. Then I mentioned, you can also touching inside the body, if there is a mass there. Those masses are usually, they bleed very easily. A woman touches there and there is bleeding. Now remember, this cancer doesn't stay only on the pelvis. It can also move forward to affect other organs.
Upwards.
It can move both. It can affect the rectum. It can affect the urinary bladder.
Is that mobile?
Of course, these are cells now, and those cells are they are micro, of the micro size, so they can be
Do they
transmitted.
talk to each other like? Do they have
You can see
intercell communication?
Of course, one cell affects the other just like that until it gets around the body. So now, if all those structures there around the cervix are affected, you may also have symptoms. One of the symptoms, a woman can come down with kidney failure. And now what's happened? Maybe probably because this cancer affected the pelvis of the woman and blocked urine passage and damaged
from the bladder.
Yes, and damaged the kidneys. The woman may also urinate and urinate blood because the cancer has also affected the urinary bladder and she's now urinating blood. So you can see whenever a woman has any condition not to see blood and she sees blood from her private parts, she has to come to the hospital for further investigation. Or maybe she's poo-pooing and there is blood there, so she has to...
Well, with poo-pooing, you would suspect it's from your digestive tract.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Whether it's from the digestive... Well, you have
just
to come
go
to...
check yourself.
Yeah, so that we cannot investigate further and find out. But before that one occurs, of course, the major pathway could have had symptoms, Not like I said, more of bleeding. Most of the time, the bleeding is most of the time uncontrollably. And there is a lot of offensive smell. Of course, some of us that stay in the hospital, you find out that when you see a woman that has cervical cancer, of course, from the offensive odor, we know. We have not spoken to the woman, but we know that this is a cervical cancer. And it's a disease of shame, and nobody wants to have cervical cancer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, a while ago, we talked about certain lifestyle factors that can predispose a woman. And there's this, well, I would call it like a cosmetic practice among the female folk. It's called douching. You find some people they'll tell you it's saline, it's neutral, the pH is neutral, just use it to wash your insides. Now, is this a myth? Is it an old wives' tale? Does it do any work, or is it a predisposing factor in itself, to that area? How does douching help the women folk, and does it predispose them to cervical cancer?
Just like I mentioned before, douching is not a practice that we support in our practice, because one, like you said, it can also help to transmit some other infections and all that, and it doesn't prevent cervical cancer in any form. Say you want to wash off the HPV viruses, it doesn't. So if somebody is practicing douching, it doesn't help prevention of cervical cancer.
Does it do anything? Does it help in any way?
It doesn't have any significant value.
Therapeutic or
no
value.
It doesn't have. Probably people do it because they don't want to get pregnant. But
even
still,
with that,
it doesn't prevent
pregnancy.
Yeah.
All right. So according to the report, cervical cancer is like the second largest in terms of prevalence, second only to breast cancer. Now, why is it that most cancers, their etiology is unknown, but this one particularly is known? And there was this recent report, I've forgotten the details, where a surgeon was known to have contracted cancer from operating a cancer patient. Now, is this something that is real? Can a cervical cancer patient transmit, the virus to probably her physician or maybe a caregiver? So is it transmittable?
Well, for that to happen, there have to be a lot of processes. Like now, the caregiver could be a man. And before we operate on women, we usually protect ourselves properly, and so that there's no contact.
Yeah, there's no
so you find out that there's no contact. Like I said, the major problem there is contact, skin contact, between both the two parties that are involved. So if there's no major persistent skin contact, there won't be any transmission.
Okay.
And like I said, not only that there is transmission, somebody gets HPV virus infection. But remember that over time, if you have a strong immunity, your body system can always remove those viruses. The problem is when the body immunity has failed and you find out that there is a development of cancer-causing-like cells, which eventually, if unchecked, will eventually progress to cancer. Yeah.
All right. So, like I mentioned earlier about cervical cancer vaccination, right? And on so many platforms, medical and healthcare platforms, people have come out to say cervical cancer is really important that women are aware, protect themselves and things like that. But then finally you find out that people are not catching on. Case in point, the recent rollout of cervical cancer vaccination. What has been your experience with the vaccination? Is there hesitancy? Did people fight it or did they really accept it? Before you answer that question, I think it should be a follow-up question to how exactly does vaccination prevent cervical cancer? Then you can answer to the vaccine hesitancy.
Okay, let's start with how vaccines affect.
Yes.
Now, what vaccine does is that they bring in the antigen. Antigen is something that looks like.
I was going to tell you to explain what antigen is.
Something that looks like the HPV virus. And then they plant it in somebody's system. Now the body reacts to it by developing antibodies. That's cells that fight.
Soldiers that fight
those cells.
Yeah.
So when the body develops it, it means that the body is now equipped. So when the body now sees anything like that virus, it attacks it and takes it away. So that's what the virus does. So now if a girl child is given that HPV vaccine, it means that she now develops immunity. So it means that the virus cannot affect the woman. If that type of virus affects
because you mentioned it's type 16 and type 18.
Yes.
Can one vaccine, protect for 16 and 18, or you take two different vaccines for the two different?
No, like the common vaccines
strains.
we have the Cervarix. We also have the Gardasil. Now the Cervarix protects for only two, that is 16 and 18, and they cause majority of the cervical cancer, up to 70% of the cervical cancer. So now, but the Gardasil has about 4 strains that it helps to prevent, both the 6, 11, 16, and 18. Now, they are also working on trying to get more vaccines that are polyvalent, that is, that can prevent so many viruses. Up to 9, they have gotten a vaccine that can prevent up to 9 strains. Okay, so that is where we are at the moment. Just like the question he asked, assuming that one of the virus that I got, I am not protected against it in my vaccine, probably you may develop cervical cancer. But like I said, the majority of the cancer-causing viruses are protected by these two. So if we're able to take out these 70% of viruses, I mean, the girl child will be protected against the
All right,
virus.
we're still going to get to the vaccine hesitancy. However, I want to go to the streets. There's another report, Vox Pop want to find out what do people know, the extent of the knowledge they have of cervical cancer. So please take a listen to this presentation.
Cervical cancer is a growth that cannot be contained. In other words, it's malignant. Yes, it can spread. That's the meaning. It does not stay in one place. So it can start from that place, from the mouth of the womb, and spread to other parts of the womb and go into other parts of the pelvic region, affect even the bladder, it can affect the stomach, it can go up and go to the chest. And typically, cells, malignant cells can even travel through the lymphatic system. In other words, it can get very far from where it started. So it is caused by what is called the human papillomavirus. There are the HPV for short. There are many strains of it, so many strains of it. In other words, many types of human papillomavirus. And this is a cancer, incidentally, this is a cancer that has a known organism that causes it, unlike many other cancers. So it is helpful in the sense that if there is an organism that is known to cause it, something can be done if that organism can be arrested. So in trying to prevent it, children at a certain age who have not had any sexual contact can receive a vaccine, the human papillomavirus vaccine, that would prevent if that organism comes into their body now, their antibodies will now fight it and they will not come down with the cancer. And it's not for adults who have been engaged in sexual activity. So talking about finding it out early, like in cancers, early detection is usually the best form of treatment. So we do certain things like pap smear. Something is taken from that portion in a female. And may I just say something before I get to that? It affects only females, but males can also harbor that virus. Yes, males can harbor the papillomavirus, the human papillomavirus. Males can harbor it in their body, but they will not suffer from it because they don't have a cervix, they don't have a womb, but they can transmit it effectively to as many women as possible. Yes, and that is why one of the ways of preventing it is not having multiple sexual partners, maintaining a good sexual life, then doing the preventive, which is going for screening for pap smear in designated places like the University of Nigeria Teaching Hospital or cancer centers by the Medical Women Association of Enugu State. I think they also do that, and some other private institutions do that. So the treatment for that, if detected early, the womb that place can be removed. That is surgery. A radiotherapy can be done. Chemotherapy using drugs to kill the cancer cells can be done if it hasn't advanced much. That's why early detection is very important. So generally, the awareness that should be created is for parents to know that their girl child can receive the vaccine and have that cancer prevented. Because if I'm not wrong, it's about the second most lethal cancer. It kills, in statistics, it is after breast cancer. That is next. After breast cancer, that is next. But a child can be prevented at an early stage by receiving the vaccine. Then, like I said before, people should not be engaged in multiple sexual activities. They should maintain a partner. And screening also can be done. I'm not quite sure about screening on men to know if they have it. I believe that there might be, let me not say what I'm not very sure of right now. Then, in conclusion, we need support for cancer patients because there are places that the Fund of Nigeria or the Global World or WHO goes into that are not really so necessary. But health is not given priority. Women with cancer, you find out that majority of women with cancer, cervical cancer, are paupers. Yes, they are paupers because sometimes their lifestyle is due to poverty. Even if you are so rich, treatment for cancer is quite expensive. So it depletes the purses of people. So funding and support to cervical cancer patients and other cancer cases is very necessary.
Cervical cancer is a type of cancer that affects the cell cervix. So it's close to the lower abdomen, which is the vagina. So cervical cancer, it has affected more than 90% of women in this country. So I think that talking about cervical cancer, we need solutions to cervical cancer. First of all, some people don't know the solutions. They don't even know anything about cervical cancer. Therefore, the government needs to create awareness to the women. Even if we cannot create it in a very big way, it can be introduced in the secondary school, university, or even in primary school in order for people to know about it.
Awareness of cervical cancer. So I think government should create more awareness. Not just government, even schools, they should teach about cervical cancer because I myself, I don't really know much about cervical cancer. So government should create awareness in hospitals, even the society, they should talk more about cervical cancer and the dangers of cervical cancer because it kills women and some women don't even know about cervical cancer. Also in hospitals, there should be vaccines for cervical cancer because in my secondary school, I think a hospital came and we actually had to pay and they gave girls vaccine for cervical cancer. So I think it should be talked about often.
I believe if the government put more efforts on the issue of cervical cancer, for example, HIV is widely known, kidney problems are widely known, but cervical cancer, I don't believe a lot of people, a lot of women knows about it. So if the government can concentrate on that area and put more this thing on that area, I believe it will make people be aware of it, and a lot of women will not die ignorantly because it's when it gets to the dangerous stage that a lot of them know about it. So if the government can concentrate the way they concentrate on HIV, kidney problem, even malaria, on cervical cancer issues, I believe there will be a little bit of solution on that.
Welcome back. Well, before we went to, take a listen to the Vox Pop, we were on cervical cancer vaccination hesitancy, and Dr. Enebe is still in the studio to have this discussion with us. So, Doctor, tell us, but before we go to that, there's something that someone mentioned from the Vox Pop that I wanted you to respond to.
Yeah.
There are many actually, but we'll take two. First of all, she mentioned that cervical cancer is malignant. Now you're going to explain what malignancy means, and indeed, if all cervical cancers or all HPV viruses cause malignancy. Then secondly, she said that the vast majority of women who suffer from cervical cancer are poor. Now, is there a correlation between, the economic state of an individual and being predisposed to cervical cancer? So first of all, talk about the malignancy.
Okay. Well, malignant means cancer.
Okay.
They are cancerous. Okay. They have abnormal, uncontrollable growth that goes around to affect one cell, affect the other ones, and it continues to spread. Okay. So that's malignant. Okay. So it's not all HPV viruses that are malignant. Just like we said, some of them are. I used the word oncogenic before, like cancer causing. So some of them are not. They are low risk viruses. You get them. Some of them also cause normal genital warts. That's another thing also. Women
caused by HPV.
Caused by HPV. Just like that Gardasil I mentioned, they are caused by HPV 16 and 6 and 11. So you can see that Gardasil also controls for that
genital warts.
Yeah.
Okay.
So and then you talked about.
She mentioned that a vast majority of women that come down with cervical cancer are poor.
They are poor. Yeah. Well.
So is there any correlation between economic, standard and?
Yes. From what she's saying, that probably we wanted to talk about hesitancy, and the major thing there is education, knowledge. Who knows about cervical cancer and who doesn't know? Now we conducted a research in Enugu among secondary school teachers.
Yes, I was going to get there.
Yes,
because I know you posted it on ResearchGate, I think.
Yes, among secondary school teachers. These are the people that should be teaching the children, or probably even the parents. We found out that majority don't have a good knowledge. It's only about 41% of them
what cervical
cervical cancer is. So if they don't know, how will they now teach the children how to take vaccine? Have you seen where the problem started? And most of them are also parents somewhere, you know. Okay. Now we also even had we also did another study. Among the nurses that work in the hospital, they know about cervical cancer. You know, majority of them have good knowledge, but they never screened for cervical cancer causing.
So there's a gap between knowledge and attitude.
So you find out that attitude is different and also knowledge is also quite different. That you're educated does not translate to the fact that you'll be screened. However, if you're educated, most likely your sexual life will be maybe different. You know, having multiple sexual partners will be grossly reduced. However, when you talk about poverty, she doesn't have the education. That's number one. Now, if you don't have the education, sometimes you see them getting married to polygamous homes, being exposed to sexual activities quite early in their life because they may be exposed to maybe the streets, you know. And then also, even when the person grows up, he doesn't know anything called screening. So you find out that poverty, in an essence, can translate to causing cervical cancer.
Let's talk about screening. I think in the course of the presentation, screening came up, pap smear. I want you to speak to how available the testing is and how easy it is to get tested. But first of all, tell us what the processes are. What exactly is pap smear?
Well, pap smear is a procedure that we carry out on women. It's a form of test that we carry out on women by collecting cells from the mouth of the womb. When we collect those cells, we stain them on a slide and then view it under the microscope. And when we view it under the microscope by specially trained people, there are certain things they will see on the cell. They say, oh, this one is getting abnormal. And they can now say, okay, this one is high risk, this one is low risk.
They can be categorized.
Yes, they can be categorized just by looking at them under the microscope. So that is what is called a pap smear. And it's expected that every woman that is sexually active should at least, if they're coming into the hospital, should carry out pap smear. Now in our own environment, you find out that carrying out this pap smear is difficult. Why? The people that are even meant to do the screening, they are just very few. If you look at what is happening in Nigeria now, most of the majority of the doctors, they've all migrated. So who is going to carry out the screening? Who is going to read those pap smear? Now, one of the materials that we use for the pap smear, it's not commonly available. There was before I became a senior doctor in my hospital, I carried out a research and I wanted to do pap smear. I went to Obuetem, I couldn't find any material for pap smear. So I have to go to China to import those materials. And then
for pap smear?
Yes, for me to carry out that pap smear. So I found out that it's not commonly available. Now, which centers are now doing the pap smear? There are very few. Maybe you talk about UNTH, talk about Parkland, then talk about the Women's Center, you know, and then some other few. You find out that people don't even engage in procuring materials for those screening procedures. So now, I think the Enugu state governments, they are working towards the fact that they want to make sure that people are trained. Now, training people at the primary level means that you have widespread information and education among the populace. Now, they also now learn how to now look out for those things that look like cancer. And if they do that, it means that majority of the people, when they come for antenatal, they should have that education.
Yeah.
They should be told about cervical cancer and when they can get that thing done. And then even among women meetings, how many times have they brought out their time and say, yes, there is one virus, they say that it causes our death, and that it kills almost majority of the women that have it. Can we table it and it becomes a major discussion on their table? So I find out that enough is not being given to this particular disease. And that is why it has persisted and continued
for this long
to exist in the environment. Now, if you come to developing countries, the majority of the cancers are in developing countries compared to what we have in developed countries.
Which goes to collaborate what the lady mentioned.
Yeah. So why? If you go to developing countries, they have a streamlined policy how they are checking cervical cancer. First, they are checking it at the level of the primary level, making sure that women within the age of 11 and 14, or 9 and 14, that they have vaccination. Now, if they don't catch it there, eventually get infected with the virus, they also wait for you at the screening level, where they also do pap smear, do visual inspection with acetic acid, and so many other ways of checking for whether you have exposure. Because that time, they're just checking whether the virus is there. Whether there is any, and all of them, all these, when they check and find out that it's there.
We find out that this is a matter, is a policy matter.
So you can see now.
It's a policy matter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now let's get it down to what is happening in developing countries. Government is not interested.
My question would be, I know, but you know that government doesn't give you anything on a platter.
Yes.
As Nigerian government doesn't at least.
Yeah.
Now you're a member of NMA. You're also a member of MBCAN.
Yes.
What are some of the advocacy moves that you guys have made to see if there will be a little bit, even if it's just subsidy, for carrying out the test, or just in any way to make it easier or accessible and affordable
you can
for
see
the people?
The women group, the medical women, that's the women that are doctors in the Enugu.
Yes.
They have thought it twice that this is the major cause of morbidity and mortality among women. And they said that established a center, they are paying somebody. So what we're not saying that we want to spread this message more. That if you want to screen for cervical cancer, they can come and you'll be screened. So you can see, yes, and you see that sometimes when we're doing our health week, sometimes this is where we focused. And then when we also do our health outreaches.
I'm curious as to why you are leaving it for the women week. Sometimes women listen more to their husbands than to their fellow women.
Yes.
So wouldn't it be important that the men also lend the voice to the women week?
That's what I'm saying, that sometimes when NMA, Nigerian Medical Association, when they are doing their outreaches, they also do pap smear as one of the, like in MDK and Parkland, when it comes to MDK and Parkland, last we went to Aba, and one of the things that we went to Aba was screening women for cervical cancer. It was part of our program. There's no way I would go there, and we know about it. So we screened a lot of women to know whether they had any risk of developing cancer. And the people that had problem, we brought them to Enugu and they were treated. So it's part of our program. We have not forgotten that. Yeah. And not only cervical cancer, breast cancer, because two of them, they run hand in hand. So we examine people's breast and also make sure that we screen them for cervical. So it's an integral part of, you can't discuss about anything anyway without putting cervical cancer by the side. So,
now, does cervical cancer cause infertility in women or even in men as carriers?
Now, if somebody has HPV virus and no abnormal cells, there's you can have your babies and no infection.
The baby is not infected.
However,
okay,
when there is a treatment around that cervix, maybe the cervix is being cut off or the uterus is removed, you now find out that you cannot say, this cervix this cervical cancer has not led me to not having a baby. I could remember when I was in training, a woman that has human immunodeficiency virus infection. Now, because of the fact that they have low immunity, so they even develop the virus at their early ages. So around 23, the woman developed cancer of the cervix. And when it develops cancer of the cervix, that area is blocked. It's covered. There's no way. There's even having sexual contact will not more be possible. So you can see such a woman will not have a child, and it may be described as infertility.
Yeah. Secondary, right?
Yes. No, infertility means that when you talk about primary and secondary, they are different. So, but it's infertility.
Okay, when you were discussing pap smear, it sounded a little bit invasive, right? But I know that antibodies have actually come up in the course of our conversation. So is there like a serological test that can be done to detect the presence of HPV or the antibodies to HPV without going through a woman's inner parts, right? Is there any test like that?
Well, most of the time what we do
as
is
an alternative to pap smear.
HPV testing, You want to now test whether the woman has HPV. Now do a DNA and check whether the woman has any cancer-causing virus.
You have to break a bank to carry
so we still have to go there, just like the way when a woman has a discharge, she comes to the hospital and they take a sample from there, And I think a woman has to start developing positive mindset towards preventing cervical cancer, making sure that each time you go to the hospital, you have an opportunity for you to do cervical cancer. Where I work, there's no woman that comes to my clinic that I don't recommend, at least for the first time, even if it means that this is the only time the woman will have pap smear. All
right. So we are gradually winding down, but I wanted you to speak to I know you've said you've done outreaches, but have you met with politicians or relevant stakeholders in trying to make, you know, when you get to the hospital, there are some tests that are, what's the word, vital tests, right? For lack of a better phrase, has there been any policy or advocacy move by your group or your association to, you know, speak to stakeholders to see how they can get this particular test, I'm talking about cervical cancer testing, to become not really an important, but a test that must be carried through and of course subsidized so that people can afford it. I know you have gone for outreaches, you have spoken to that, but is there like advocacy to meet with government officials, to meet with committees, healthcare committees, to say, guys, we need you guys to come and subsidize this so that women can have more access, make it an integral test, an integral part of the battery of tests that women can do when they come to the hospital, something like that.
I think the advocacy has always been there. And but what we're not begging now is that government should focus more on it, you know, and start bringing in material. Like I said, that Enugu state government is going to train a lot of health workers. Now, why are they training the health workers? They want to train them on how to carry out cervical cancer tests on women, especially those women that are in the villages that don't have access to town or have places where they could be screened. So they are now training them. Maybe by Monday, you see that the training will start statewide.
Oh, beautiful.
So, I mean, that's a positive side from the government. And in the last government, they supported Parkland by creating a cervical screening center. And they supported it with colposcopy machine and the rest. So you can see governments, they also gradually, they are learning about it. Then if you watch in the last government, there was a time the girl child they were vaccinated against HPV. So, I mean, it's still also showing that they're also showing interest. But like you said, if government is going to hear us through this advocate, this also means of speaking to the government, that any woman that comes to the hospital should have a free cervical cancer screening, just like what is done abroad. Once the person is sexually active, they should just give that cervical cancer screening free of charge. And then they should also invest more on medical workers that are going to help carry out this. Not allowing our medical doctors to be traveling abroad. By the time all of them travel, it means that the cervical cancer that is already so much. Imagine Nigerian population is about 1% of the world population, but you have about up to 10% of cervical cancer burden in the whole world. I mean, it's so bad. So we should make everything possible to retain our doctors.
In one word, what's the prognosis for cervical cancer? In one word, before we go, we have a testimonial of a cervical cancer survivor that will soon come up. What's the prognosis?
Let's see. If it's detected early, the prognosis is fine, good. Almost about more than 90% chances of 5 years survival. So if it's just the key thing there is early detection.
Beautiful. So with that, we get to the testimonial report of a cervical cancer survivor. Take a listen to this.
My name is Maria. I was diagnosed with cervical cancer, and it was one of the most challenging times of my life. However, through the support of my doctors, family, and friends, I found strength I didn't know I had. The treatments were tough, but I'm grateful for the medical advancements that helped me through. Today, I'm in remission, and I encourage others to take preventive measures such as regular screening and never lose hope in the faces of diagnosis.
And there you have it, a testimonial from a cervical cancer survivor. Great story. Thank you so much, Dr. Enebe. It was really good having this conversation with you. I mean, I, for one, I learned a thing or two, and I'm sure our viewer out there learned something. So thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. We have not discussed, so we just opened up the discussion.
How about doing a part 2?
Of course, I'm always available. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for staying with us. That has been Inside Health, and don't go anywhere. Inside Health comes up next time, next week. I'm still your host, Chigi Chiagoram. Bye for now.